On Monday, the 2nd of September 2019, diveboat motor vessel Conception is engulfed in flames off the coast of California, taking the lives of 34 people trapped in their bunks. Truth Aquatics is a company based in Santa Barbara, California, founded in 1974 and owned by Glenn Fritzler. The company is a well-known and reputable operator in the diving world, offering recreational diving and snorkeling adventures around the Channel Islands off the coast of California. At the Channel Islands National Park, passengers can go scuba diving, kayaking, paddleboarding, whale watching, fishing, and swimming. In August 2019, a group of 33 passengers is scheduled to depart Santa Barbara on the 31st of August at 0400, returning on the 2nd of September. Since they'll be departing so early in the morning, the passengers are given the option to spend the evening of the 31st of August aboard the vessel. Their vessel for this trip will be the motor vessel Conception. Conception is a 23-meter liveaboard vessel built in Long Beach, California, and launched in 1981. It's designed and built specifically to carry passengers on overnight trips around the Channel Islands. Federal and international regulations require that vessels over a certain size be made of fire-resistant materials. These vessels also need to be fitted with fire sprinklers and smoke detectors, which are wired into the ship's electronics or linked to the bridge. Given the vessel's age and size, Conception at less than 100 gross tons and with fewer than 49 berths isn't covered by those regulations. It's constructed of wood covered with fiberglass, which was allowed by regulations last updated in 1978. The most recent Coast Guard inspection in August 2018 and February 2019 don't show any noteworthy violations. The vessel's certificate of inspection allows a maximum capacity of 103 persons, 4 crew and 99 passengers. The vessel is laid out with 3 decks. The upper deck consists of the wheelhouse, crew quarters and a sun deck lounge area. The main deck just below the upper deck includes a large cabin. This cabin consists of a galley in the forward segment of the cabin where crew prepare meals and a salon in the aft segment with seating for meals. The salon is accessed from the stern through a hallway lined with restrooms. On the lower deck, up to 46 people can sleep in 13 double bunks and 20 single bunks with 1 bunk reserved for crew. The lower deck also consists of the shower area, anchor locker, engine room, and a lazarette, which is a stowage area for equipment needed in the engine room. The rest of the crew berths are located 2 decks above in the aft portion of the wheelhouse on the upper deck. If you're in the bunk quarters, there are 2 ways to exit. You can go up the spiral stairs and through the salon to pass through the doors at the back, or you can climb the ladder through the 22-inch escape hatch, which also leads you to the salon and exit through the same doors at the back. On the evening of the 30th of August 2019, passengers begin to board Conception in preparation for their early departure the following morning. They board the vessel via the main deck and make their way to the bunk quarters where they're each assigned a bed. This will be their bed for the entire voyage. Operating the vessel and overseeing the voyage are 6 crew members: Captain Jerry Boylan, First Mate Cullen Molitor, First Deckhand Milton French, Second Deckhand Ali Kurtz, First Galley Hand Ryan Sims, and Second Galley Hand Mike Coles. First Mate Cullen Molitor is the first to arrive boarding Conception at around 2200 and is joined by Galley Hands Sims and Coles at around 2300. Deckhands French and Kurtz and Captain Boylan arrive at around 0300 on the morning of the 31st of August to make ready and depart 1 hour later. All the crew members will be sleeping in the crew quarters on the upper deck of Conception, except for Deckhand Kurtz, who will sleep with the passengers in the bunk quarters. After checking the vessel and equipment, they depart Santa Barbara Harbor at 0404. Conception will make various stops around Santa Cruz Island, the largest of the islands that make up the Channel Islands National Park. At 0830, Conception arrives at its first stop, Albert's Anchorage, a dive site on the south side of Santa Cruz Island. The spot is nestled close to the island and provides amateur divers with protection from the strong winds in the area. After casting anchor at Albert's Anchorage, the passengers gather in the salon for breakfast and a safety briefing by First Deckhand Milton French. The safety briefing includes information on where to find life jackets, where to gather during an emergency, and how to escape from the salon and bunk quarters. During the safety briefing, one of the passengers faints. After the passenger is revived, French continues the briefing. The next 2 days are smooth sailing. On the evening of the 1st of September, the passengers go for a night dive at Quail Rock on the northwestern side of Santa Cruz Island. While the passengers are enjoying the night dive, Galley Hands Coles turns on the air conditioning in the bunk quarters so the room will be cool for the guests by the time they go to bed. After the night dive, Conception makes its way to Platts Harbour where it will anchor for the night. As the guests are preparing for bed, many of them plug in their phones, cameras, laptops and tablets to charge. With so many devices plugged in at once, there aren't enough outlets for all the guests. Galley Hand Sims plugs his phone into charge and sees a tiny spark at the outlet. By midnight, all crew members are asleep, even though the law requires a crew member to patrol throughout the night when passengers are aboard, but the crew never actually do this. Going into the morning of the 2nd of September at 01:30, Galley Hand Coles wakes up. He's sleeping in the crew quarters on the upper deck. Instead of going back to sleep, Coles makes his way to the galley to wash some dishes. There's no one else awake, nor anything out of the ordinary. An hour later, at 02:30, Coles makes his way back to bed. Shortly after he's back in his bunk, Coles wakes again. Something's not right. Coles hears a noise that sounds like someone falling, followed by the sound of people yelling. He gets out of bed to check on the situation. As he looks out of the door towards the main deck, he sees a yellow glow. He immediately knows what it is and yells, "Fire, fire," to wake the other 4 crew members sleeping nearby. They can hear the fire crackling and popping. Coles heads for the staircase leading down to the main deck, but the passageway down is already blocked by fire. Instead, he climbs over the portside railing and drops to the main deck below. He runs around to the salon's rear door, hoping to reach the fire extinguishers that are stored inside the salon. But the entire salon is already on fire. There's no way in or out. Cole sees the escape hatch to the bunk quarters is also on fire, and the salon's fiberglass ceiling is melting and dripping onto the floor. 34 people are trapped in the bunk quarters below. Meanwhile, deckhands Molitor and French have also made their way down to the main deck. They circle the salon looking for a way in. Galley Hand Sims goes to join them, dropping over the railing onto the main deck like the other men had done. Sims lands badly, breaking his left leg in 3 places and seriously injuring his back and neck. French tries to open the only window in the salon, but it opens from the inside and he can't pry it open from the outside. The window is warm and the salon is filling with black smoke. While the crew attempts to rescue the 34 people trapped in the bunk quarters, Captain Boylan is in the wheelhouse on the upper deck making a distress call. At 03:14, the distress call goes out.
Biddy, 2 seconds. Platts Harbor. Northside Santa Cruz. 39 POV. I can't breathe. 39 POV.
Smoke fills the wheelhouse, forcing the captain out. He leaps from the starboard side of the upper deck into the water below. The other 4 crew members are still on the main deck. French calls out to Boylan for the fire axe in the wheelhouse. Boylan has already jumped overboard to escape the smoke and flames. First mate Cullen Molitor assumes the captain has been burned by the fire and jumps into the water to check on him. French is still trying to find a way into the bunkhouse, but there's smoke and fire everywhere he tries. Boylan calls to the 3 crew members on deck to jump into the water, which they do. Soon enough, Molitor realizes that the captain is unharmed and climbs back aboard Conception, desperate to try and save the passengers. But the entire deckhouse is on fire. He decides to launch the skiff and look for any survivors. French comes back aboard and helps him launch the skiff. Then he tries one last time to find a way to help the passengers. Molitor picks up the captain in the skiff. French realizes it's hopeless. He boards the skiff and the three pick up the remaining 2 crew members. Grape Escape is another vessel anchored in Platts Harbour at the same time. The passengers aboard are asleep. At 0329, the 5 crew members in the skiff make their way over and bang on the hull to wake them up. The owners of Grape Escape wake to see Conception on fire from bow to stern.
It was totally gone. I mean, you know, and it was like, my gosh, what do we do?
It was such a hopeless, helpless feeling to watch that boat burn.
Boylan and Molitor continue to make radio calls to the Coast Guard from Grape Escape, while Coles and French assist Smith with his injuries. The Coast Guard's been trying to contact Conception since Boylan's initial distress call, but have been unable to reach anyone. All crew members have abandoned the ship. At 0322, the Sector Command Center in San Pedro estimates Conception's location from its last automatic identification system broadcast and issues an urgent marine information broadcast. Emergency responders from the Coast Guard, Ventura and Santa Barbara County Fire Departments, together with a private company, Towboat US Ventura, rush to the scene. A rescue helicopter takes off from Naval Base Ventura County to assess the situation. While Boylan explains the situation to the Coast Guard over the radio, Molitor and French take the skiff back to the Conception to look for survivors. They don't find anyone. The first Coast Guard response vessel arrives at the scene at 0427, about 2 hours after Coles discovers the fire and an hour and 15 minutes after the captain's first distress call. They find Conception engulfed in flames. The Coast Guard vessel doesn't have firefighting equipment powerful enough to fight such a large blaze. A better equipped Coast Guard harbour patrol boat arrives at 0455 and starts to fight the fire. But it has trouble getting close enough in the shallow water where Conception is anchored. At 0523, a nearby civilian tugboat pulls the burning carcass of Conception into deeper water where the Coast Guard vessel can properly extinguish the flames. By the time the fire is out, large holes have burned through the hull. Before responders can enter the vessel, it sinks, coming to a rest upside down on the seabed. There are no survivors. On Monday, the 2nd of September, divers retrieve 25 bodies. 9 people remain missing. By Wednesday, the 4th of September, all but 1 of the missing bodies has been recovered, despite the efforts of around 80 divers from 6 different agencies searching the area, including members of the FBI. The last body is located and recovered by divers from the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office on Wednesday, the 11th of September. The Santa Barbara coroner conducts an examination of all 34 victims. He concludes that all died from smoke inhalation. Investigations into the incident start before all the bodies have even been pulled from the water. On the 7th of September, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives begin their investigation into the cause of the fire. They predict that the fire began in the aft portion of the salon, but the vessel is so badly damaged they can't determine the exact cause with any confidence. The most likely cause is an electrical fire. The vessel's electrical systems are old and strained beyond their limits by the air conditioning and the vast quantities of portable devices being charged simultaneously. When Conception is launched in 1981, portable electronic devices aren't nearly as prolific as they are today. On Monday, the 9th of September, a joint federal criminal investigation commences, centering on records from Truth Aquatics. The National Transportation Safety Board finds a number of deficiencies in Truth Aquatics records and that the crew of Conception contributed to the disaster. They believe the probable cause of the incident is the failure by Truth Aquatics to provide effective oversight of the vessel and of crew operations. Truth Aquatics failed to ensure there was a watchman patrolling the vessel overnight, even though it's required by law. This neglect allows the fire to grow undetected in the salon. There is also a lack of smoke detectors. Conception did have some smoke detectors, but not in the salon. Contributing to the high loss of life is the inadequate escape arrangements from the bunk quarters. Both escape routes exit into the salon where the fire is raging. Many lawsuits are filed as a result of the incident and a criminal investigation is opened. But it isn't a relative of one of the victims or even a surviving crew member who files the first lawsuit. It's the owner of Truth Aquatics, Glenn Fritzler. Just 3 days after the incident, on Friday the 5th of September, Fritzler files a lawsuit aiming to limit the company's liability to the value of their ship Conception after it sinks. The Limitation of Liability Act is a maritime law from 1851 which restricts the owner's liability to the value of the vessel. On Thursday the 12th of September 2019, First Galley Hand Ryan Sims files a lawsuit against Truth Aquatics. He maintains that the crew did not receive proper training and that Conception is not sufficiently fitted out with emergency equipment. By December 2020, 32 of the victims' families have filed lawsuits against Truth Aquatics. These cases are still ongoing. Truth Aquatics is no longer in business. In the summer of 2020, Captain Jerry Boylan is the focus of a federal criminal investigation. In December 2020, he's indicted in front of a jury for 34 counts of seaman's manslaughter, death as a result of misconduct or negligence aboard a vessel. Jerry pleads not guilty and is awaiting trial. In 2021, the victims' families also sue the Coast Guard for its failure to enforce regulations, resulting in the fire and deaths aboard Conception. On the 2nd of September 2019, 34 people lost their lives aboard Conception, and their families are still fighting wrongful death lawsuits.